Okay, now I'm going to start. Добре дошли отново в Обожаваната жена. Днес имаме специален гост. Нейното име е Синди. И още преди няколко месеца ви споменах, че искам да дойде и да разкаже историята си, защото нейната история е една от най-вдъхновяващите, която съм чувала. Сред многото вдъхновяващи истории, които съм чувала. Синди разбра, без да иска, че мъжът ти е влюбен в друга жена. И тя беше шокирана, когато разбра за това нещо. Не беше подготвена и не знаеше, че въобще е възможно. Тя винаги е била сигурна в него и в верността му. Когато той се изнесе, за да размисли, да разбере за себе си какво иска, тя беше ужасена. Защото изглеждаше, че нямаше връщане назад. Обаче тя тогава избра да направи нещо контраинтуитивно и различно. И днес Синди има брака, мечтания брак, който тя, както казва в нейните думи, ще чуете след малко, е по-хубав дори от този, който са имали преди. И с това искам да приветствам Синди. Синди, welcome!
Thank you. Hi, Mila.
Yay, I'm so happy to have you here. I'm so excited.
Yes, I am too. Hello from America.
Yes. So tell us, let's get to it. And tell us what happened? How did you find out about the affair? And what happened at that period of your life?
Well, we had been married about 30 years already. And we had 4 children, 3 girls and a boy, and they were all, they were grown and moved out. And I just realized, like, my whole life had been my kids and his whole life had been his work. And I didn't really feel like we had a bad marriage. I was clueless. Like, I thought I loved my home. I loved my community. I loved my husband. I loved my kids, everything. I just thought we had a fine life, and I wasn't at all. I was very content. But my husband, he wasn't, and I didn't know it. And like, when the kids were younger, we used to fight a lot, but then all of a sudden he just stopped fighting and just got more quiet. And I just thought, oh, we're getting along really good now. And I mean, it was years like that where I knew we weren't super close, but I didn't think, I thought we were good. And he was, after the kids started moving out, one by one to go to college, and some of them got married, he started getting really grumpy, like more and more grumpy. And I just couldn't figure out what was wrong. And we weren't, like, it was very quiet in our home because we didn't talk that much. And he would watch TV or be on his phone, and I would, be just cleaning or looking at stuff on the computer or whatever. And I thought, well, that's what it is. I'm married to a grumpy man. And he's not a grumpy man, but I didn't know that. I just thought, well, that's what it is. And so he started to, like, lose weight. Well, there was, like, I didn't know what was going on, because he was starting to lose weight and, like, trying to make himself look better. Like, I went tanning one day, and because we were going to go to Florida, and his name was on the tanning, and I didn't know that he had ever done that. And so I was like, that's so weird. And he was trying to lose weight, but my friends thought he was actually losing weight because he had cancer or something. They kept asking me, is there something wrong with him? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. And then I had also seen on his phone a text come through, and it was from another woman, and it said, thank you. And it said her name. And I thought, that's odd. I totally was clueless. Like, I thought that's odd, but I didn't go with, oh, I wonder if he's having an affair, because we're Christians and we had really high morals. And I just didn't even know it couldn't ever happen. And so I was just like, oh, that was weird. I wonder what that was on the phone. And then finally, he looked really miserable, I thought. And so I just finally said to him one day, I said, what is wrong? What is wrong? And he said, I'm not happy. I don't love you. And I'm leaving tonight. I'm going to go away for a few days, and then I'm going to still work during the day, but I'm going to be gone at night. And I was like, what? And so that's when I said, is there another woman? And he said, yes, but I'm working through it. It's nothing. It's nothing big. And so he said, I just need some space, and I'll be back or whatever. So I was like, I mean, if you've ever been through that, if anyone has ever been through it, it feels like someone like either ran over you with a Mack truck or stabbed you or something, because it's like nothing you've ever been through. And I was so caught off guard. So anyway, then, so I spent the night alone, and the next morning I thought, well, I'm going to go see if he's at work. He said he was going to go to work. So I pulled in, and his truck wasn't there. So he wasn't at work. So I was heading home, and then I saw his truck on Main Street. We have a very small town, and I saw his truck there, and we have like a rental building that was empty, and it was parked in front of that. But then across the street was a restaurant, and I thought, well, maybe he's at lunch there, and I don't want to go in there if he's there. So I'm just going to wait right here where my car wasn't really in view, and I'm going to watch and see where he comes out of, or what he's, like where he goes and if he gets in his truck. So I was looking at Facebook or something, and I missed it, and his truck was gone. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to go back to work and see if he went back to work. So as I'm driving down Main Street, I saw coming out of our empty rental his bookkeeper. And it was just like, I really believe God let me know when something so horrible is happening in your life, I think God will be there for you. And he let me know. Everything clicked. Everything clicked. And I was like, oh, I know what's going on. And so I went back to his work, and I went in his office, and I said, I need to talk to you. And so he came out to my car, and I said to him, I said, I know what's going on. I know who it is. I told him the name. I said, I know you're having an affair. I know everything. And I really didn't know, but I just felt like God told me. And so he's like, he just couldn't believe I knew. And he admitted right away, yes, I am. And I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how this happened. And I don't know. At that point, he was very remorseful and repentant. And I thought he was going to be done. Like, this is, admitting it and coming forward and being done. But it wasn't.
Oh my goodness.
It wasn't. No.
Painful.
It so
you try and stop. It sounds like it's been, like it's probably, from what I hear, it's been like a betrayal, and quite unexpected, right? You thought everything was fine, and you have these Christian values that you can lean on, and you've been married for 30 years, and then this sounds, it must have been devastating.
Oh, it was awful. So but he came home that night, and I thought, well, we're back together. But I was a prickly porcupine, because I was so hurt that I was kind of wanting to take it out on him. And I was like, the mean school teacher, you've been very bad. I was like, you've committed adultery. How could you have done that? And just, going on. And I didn't have the skills, and I didn't know how I was making him feel. Yeah. And it wasn't long, maybe 2 weeks, and he was gone again. He wrote me a note and said he needed space, and he was gonna drive around for I don't know, but anyway. And then he came back again. Like I said, this happened for 3 years, and 25 times he left and came back, and Every time it was very believable. Like the first time he said, I'll be back. I'm just going to get space. The next time he said, I need to get an apartment because she's at the office, and he was trying to get away from her at the office. So he said, I need to work during the day at an apartment, and then at night I'll come home here. Well, I believed him. It was so he could get an apartment to go move out. And so that was like 6 months he had that apartment, and then all of a sudden, he got rid of the apartment. He's coming home. He's very sorry. And so he was back, and but it wasn't long. And he one of our rental homes, we have some rental homes, one got empty, and so he took that. And he didn't live with her. He never lived with her. She had her own place 10 minutes away in a different city, but he moved out from me and lived in a rental of ours. And so it was very hard. And at one point, one of the times he came back, he even went for 6 weeks to Arizona, a very far away state, and stayed there for 6 weeks in a rehab facility to try to get through this, how he could get over this and get back to normal. But it didn't help either.
So
because
he wanted to change. He wanted to
kept saying he wanted to be back and he wanted to get over it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And yet he wasn't able to.
No. Because it's like cocaine. Like I was Googling and I found a lot of stuff on affairs, and it was like, it's like a cocaine addiction where all these chemicals go off in their brain of how good they feel and everything. And so then they try to get away, just like a cocaine addict, and it draws them back. And that's what I learned.
And so when did you realize, okay, something needs to change here? This is not working. He comes back and goes away. He comes back, and 25 times, quite a lot. It sounds like a roller coaster.
It's ridiculous. It was a roller coaster. I know. Well, I didn't really have a point where I did anything. I mean, I started Googling. Well, first of all, I started praying for him because I just knew he needed help. And so you can't pray for someone and still be angry at them. So it was my anger that I started having more empathy for him and less anger. And so that helped me to humble me and get me to think, I had something to do with this too. And so then I started, so the praying helped. And then I started Googling, and I found all that about affairs, and it said they last 4 months to 3 years. And I thought, well, that's a long time, but if it takes that, I'm in for the long haul, because I want my family whole and I want my marriage back. And so that helped me to see that it's not a short thing for them to get through what they're going through. And they also said, if you can stay in the valley and be a safe place for him, if you can't stay there and you can't take it anymore, fine, it's up to you. You can divorce him. But if you can stay there in that horrible place of the valley and be a safe place for them, then there's a good chance they'll come back. But the main thing that helped me is I Googled and I found Laura Doyle's book, The Surrendered Wife. And that was the key to having him see me differently and having him want to be with me and want to have us back, because I learned those skills. And as you and I know.
Yes, we know. Of course we do. And so I want now, it sounds amazing. Is that it sounds like you through the praying, you kind of melted your heart a little bit, opened up to him, because I can understand the anger. That's quite a intense emotion that separates, and that opened up an opportunity for you to look how maybe you could take responsibility for it. And it sounds like you did by reading Laura's book. And I just wonder first, did he tell you what the reason was? Was he able to articulate?
Yes, he told me, you are, you don't appreciate me. You aren't, you don't respect me, and you're very controlling. And I was just like, what is he talking about? I couldn't even figure it out. I thought I was so respectful, and I didn't understand any of that, because a man sees respect so different than a woman. And I was always I was always trying to help him, constantly telling him my opinions and trying to show him how to do something better. And that's just, in a man's world, that's just saying, you don't think I know what I'm doing and you don't respect me. So yeah, I learned all that through Laura. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And so he was able to articulate. And that's amazing, because my husband wasn't. He was just saying it just doesn't work between us. And I don't know why. So I was just curious to see. And I think, maybe he figured it out after 30 years. My husband said after a year that things weren't working between us. So I guess 30 years is a long period to contemplate what the reason is. So he had it right. But yeah. And so you read the book, and what were you thinking when you read the book?
I was like, will she have a microphone and a camera in my house? Because this is me totally. And it made me realize, what there's things I can do to change, because we had gone to a counselor for a year, and every week, once a week, we would go, and he would say, Doug, are you over with your affair? And he'd say no. And he'd say, well, then we can't do anything. We can't work on your marriage until you're over that. Literally for, I think it was a year, maybe not, but it felt like a year. And it was like, if I would have known the skills in Laura's book, I could have been working on so much, but I just thought I couldn't work on anything. So that wasn't good. But then after I got the book, I ordered the book, then I got an email. I guess Laura knew I got the book, so she sent an email. Do you want a private coach? Just for an hour free private coaching. I'm like, okay, I will take it. And so I guess it was a discovery call to see if I needed more or whatever. And so during that, I loved talking to the lady about it, because it was just like, they're so pro marriage, and a lot of my friends had not been pro. And so I was just like, I want to learn these skills. I love this book. I want to learn these skills. What's the best way I can learn it? And she said, well, if you want to become a coach, and I had never in my life thought become a coach. That wasn't even on my bucket list. And so I was like, okay, I will do it, whatever it takes to learn these skills. And so I signed up for coach training. I didn't even know if I was going to be a married woman, like I didn't know if any of it. I didn't know if I would be back with my husband or anything, but I just wanted, she said, like, oh, you'll have coaching anytime you want it. And I'm like, I need that. So and it's true. All my friends that were fellow trainees, we coached each other constantly, and it was wonderful. And I am very thankful.
The power of coaching. I've experienced it. I've experienced it too. And I still get coaching every now and then, because there's still things that I would like to make better in my relationship, in my life. So I love it. It sounds like you're like, yeah, I need that. That's going to be good. And so what did you do?
Well, probably the first thing I did was tried this gratitude skill. And he was still coming over, even though he lived away from me, he was still coming over and doing like the grass mowing, or doing like the snow removal, or our furnace broke, so he fixed that. And then so I started saying, thank you so much. And I literally, because we had been married 30 years, I didn't thank him anymore for that stuff, because I'm like, that's his job. I don't need to thank him. Well, he appreciated when I said thank you. And so I could tell he liked it. And so he started doing more and more. And he always took the garbage for me. And so I was like, thank you. And then there's another part of gratitude called the goddess of fun and light, which means to get really happy. And I had lost that because I was always bogged down with all the work and all that. And so I thought, I'm going to get that back. And so when he would come in the door, like before, when we were married 30 years, he would come in the door, I would be cooking or something. I wouldn't even notice he came in. I wouldn't even say hi. Oh, I am so embarrassed. It was terrible. I wasn't, I admit it. But now I was like, I'm trying to change this up. And so when he would come over, like he started wanting to come over for coffee because as I'm doing things differently, he wanted to come over more. And so he'd come in and I just run to him and give him a big hug and, hi, it's so good to see you. And we have a dog that named Rusty that would always, like when you come home, he would always be there for you. And so I loved how that felt when Rusty was so excited to see me. And I thought, if Rusty can do it, I can do this. So I started doing it and literally he loved it. I could tell he really he'd smile. And so, and I mean, this was going from at first, when it first came out, he told me things like, you repulse me. Like when I would hug him, he'd be like, you repulse me. I have 0% attraction for you. I never loved you. Even when you're walking down the aisle, I never loved you. He said things like that throughout the 2 years, and it was painful. But he later told me the reason I said those things was because I was trying to, justify what I was doing, and my morals were not for what I was doing. So I had to make you out to be this horrible thing, and then I could justify it.
Yeah. So he magnified the bad so that he can justify it, because he obviously was feeling also bad about what he was doing. Because it's not right indeed. And so he said all these horrible things, painful things. And how did you stay on track? How didn't you give up when you heard he didn't love you, or if he felt repulsed by you? What made you think, okay, this is going to change?
Yeah, I didn't know if it would change, but I just knew. I mean, when we were on our wedding day, we took vows, and I said, for better or worse, which I didn't know how worse could be. But I said, I would stay for better or worse. And I made that vow to God. And I didn't make it to the people there. I made it to God. And I felt like someday I'm going to have to answer to God. And if he says, why didn't you stay when you made that vow that you would? And my husband wasn't divorcing me. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to stick this out actually, Laura coached me one time and through my training. And she said, what's your magic wand that you would love to happen? And I said, and at the time it sounded impossible. I said, for my husband to come home, for us to have the marriage that we've always wanted, and for my family to be whole. And it just sounded, I thought she'd say, well, that's pretty far-fetched. And she said, no, that's great. That we see this all the time around here on our campus. This turns around all the time. And she said, someday we're going to be doing our happy dance together. And I thought, oh, I hope. Yeah, I didn't forget what she said. I always remembered. And eventually we did our happy dance together.
Yay, of course. We all did it for you.
Yes, you were there. I mean, you were there for this whole thing too. Yeah. So I loved it.
Yeah, and we've been doing it for many women indeed. So I'm happy you stuck with it. And so I hear you started adding gratitude, getting happy, and what happened? He started coming back more often. I hear he started coming back for coffee. What happened?
Yeah. Well, then he even, like on my birthday, he asked me for a date. And so I was like, okay. And we went and we had a great time. So then he liked that. So he started every weekend asking me for a date. And so that worked out. But then COVID hit and we couldn't go on date anymore. So actually COVID helped us. Like, I'm sorry to the world, but for us, COVID helped because it made so we couldn't be with other people, but we could be he could come over here, but we couldn't go to church or things like that. So he started every Sunday morning, we would watch online, our churches. And so then that was like get to be a little normal thing for him to come over every Sunday morning. And it felt really good. And I could tell he thought it felt good too. So that was nice. And yeah, it just eventually I could tell, like, there's the thing about affairs, it's called limerence, is where they start out just gradually and then they get to where they think they're madly in love, and then eventually it's like a bell curve, and eventually it starts to crack a little, and they see the other person during the top part like they're no wrong, it can do no wrong, everything's wonderful, and then they start to see things that are going wrong. And the more that I would do right with the skills, the more he could see she didn't have the skills, so he didn't. And he even said to me at one point, he goes, wow, you're like up here, and so I felt like I was the other woman now. So, and one time we were on a date, and this is hilarious. We were on a date, and he supposedly had said that he was back with her. I don't know. He still wanted to go on dates with me. He didn't take her in public too much because he's embarrassed. But she heard that we were out on a date, and from someone that was in the restaurant. And so I thought I was like the other woman that night. So it's just, it was a very fun time. And so it was probably the last year there that we were dating. So the last year wasn't as hard as the first 2 years, but he still hadn't, committed back. And that happened in like, I think it was April or March of 2021, maybe. No, wait, I gotta think here. Oh, April in 2020, we went to Gulf Shores, and it was 2021, because we went to Gulf Shores with my friends. Just a couple of my girlfriends went, and she's been with me through the whole thing. She was such a good friend to me. But anyway, we're there and we're having fun, and all of a sudden I get a phone call from him, and he's like, I just want you to know that I love you and I always have. And it felt so good. But it was so funny because the phone cracked right when he said it, and I'm like, can you repeat that? And so he said, I love you and I always have. And it just melded my heart. And I could tell, because he said, this time I shut the door. I told the other woman it's completely over. He used to leave the door open, he said, and say, I'll check with you in a month and see how you're doing, or something like that. And he said, it was completely over. And he said she agreed. She wanted it over too, which I could understand after all 25 times. So, yeah. So then I knew it was going to be good from then on. So, yeah.
Sounds amazing. And what a difference. Like, oh, I never loved you. I'm repulsed. And then I love you. And I always have loved you. And so, and I hear you live in a small town. So do you get to see that other woman? How do you?
Oh, no, I haven't seen her. She lives actually pretty far away. And so, she's never been around. Thank goodness. Yeah, I wouldn't want to see her. But,
so how in those 2-3 years, so I bet you were curious about her, and who is she?
Yeah. Oh yeah. When it first happened, I wanted every detail. And you don't need it. It didn't make me feel any better. Like, what did I have by knowing everything? Nothing, and it's not going to change anything to know. So I just, from Laura's book, I learned, don't give it any oxygen, no oxygen. And so I stopped talking about her. I didn't bring her name up ever. I didn't ask anything about her and act like she was not even in existence. And it suffocated it. I really believe that when you don't give something oxygen, it suffocates it. And it was great. Yeah.
And it did. And so tell us, Cindy, what is your relationship like now?
Well, after that Gulf Shores trip, I came home and I was gun shy to have him move home again because, 25 times I want to make sure he was really sincere. And so he had been going to a pastor for help, and the pastor wanted me to come too. So I started going with him, and at one of our meetings, he got down on one knee and asked me to forgive him with tears in his eyes, and yeah, it was really sweet. I was very thankful for that. And then I just wasn't sure when I wanted him to move home, and so the pastor helped us figure out a time frame, and he even had us take a premarital class. At 35 years of marriage, we took a premarital class. But it was very helpful, and it did work, help a lot. So anyway, we made a decision to have him come home, because in October he was really wanting me to make a decision to have him come home. So we said, okay, December, we want our kids, they're coming home for the holidays. We want to be together in our home for them, and just for each other to be able to be together with them. And so on a random December 14th Tuesday, he came home with his clothes and moved back in. It was wonderful. And then that Christmas, the kids came a few weeks later, and it was amazing to be all one family in one home for the weekend. And I have a 4-year-old grandson. At that time, he was 4, and he knew that Doug lived in one house and I lived in another one. And so he saw Grandpa come out of the bedroom, because he came home. He got up early to play and came down to play, and he saw Grandpa come out of the bedroom, and he's like, "Grandpa, where did you stay last night?" And he said, "Oh, in my bedroom with Grandma." And he's like, "Huh?" He wouldn't believe it. And Grandma's like, "Yes, I did. I live here now." And so that was really good to know that our grandkids they see us together all the time now, and it's just normal. And I hope he doesn't remember that, since he was only 4. I hope someday he doesn't even remember that. So and then also for that Christmas, my husband, we went to a very conservative church, and we didn't even believe in wedding rings at that time, and just very so I never had a wedding ring in all 30 years. But while he was gone, it was it was hard to look at all the other people with wedding rings and know that their husbands were committed to them. And so deep in my heart, I was like, I would love a wedding ring. But I never told him that. And then that Christmas, same Christmas that our kids came home, we opened gifts, and he had gotten me a wedding ring.
Oh,
It was
amazing.
it was such
So romantic. What a beautiful story, Cindy. And we were talking just before the interview how these holidays and all the celebrations, family celebrations that you have changed so much now that you're together, and how different it
because our kids wouldn't let him come to the holidays. They would go to his house for like an hour, but they wouldn't let him come to the whole weekend with us. And so it was very sad, because he has a wonderful personality. He's super fun. He's a great guy. And so it was a big hole in a loss when he wasn't there. And it was very evident, and I didn't like it at all. And so I knew I wanted our family whole, and now it is. And the holidays are back to how they're fun, and everybody's happy, and I just wanted everyone to be happy. So, yeah.
Amazing. Oh, what a beautiful story. Thank you so much.
I didn't answer that one question you said, how is it now?
Yeah.
And now it it's the marriage that I always wanted, because he it was his idea. Every morning he has us do this devotional where we read this thing. It's very spiritual, and asks questions, and so we'll talk deep and open, and it's so different than before where he was just closed up, never talk. And it's what I wanted, and now I have that. We have our coffee and we do that together. And then before I would sleep in the morning, and he would go to work. He went real early to work, and then at night I would stay up cleaning or getting stuff done, and he would go to bed early. And so now we get up together and we go to bed together. And it's just, without this happening, I know it sounds weird to be like, I'm okay that this happened, because without this happening, we would have just kept on going, worse, more grumpy. COVID would have been horrible to go through together, and just like, it wouldn't have been good. So even though I hate what happened, I would never want to go through it again, and I wouldn't go through it again. I just know that without it, we wouldn't be where we are today. We wouldn't have this wonderful marriage that we have now. So I'm just, I just feel like everything happens for a purpose, and I'm glad that I stuck it out. And if anyone thinks they're alone, they are not alone, because this happens. I mean, this is epidemic, and it's sad, but it's reality. And but another thing, a lot of people were saying to me during those 2 years or 3 years, get some self-respect. Like, why don't you kick him to the curb? How can you keep doing this? And he just keeps going and coming and roller coaster. And I was just like, I just thought to myself, I think self-respect is how you treat others, not how they're treating you. And so I just hung on to that, because, I could have had self-respect and divorced him, and now you really, I got you. But in the end, I would be hurting. And like we had just talked before this, we had 2 weddings last year and this year. I had a daughter and a son get married, and the weddings were amazing. And everyone there knew what we had been through, because all of our friends knew this was a very visual, out in the open thing that happened. Everyone knew we were separated, what he had done, our church, our friends, but they all knew now that we were back together, and they're so happy and so excited. And so the weddings were just wonderful, because everyone was thrilled that he's walking my daughter down the aisle. We're together. It would have been so different. And so I'm just grateful for Laura and those skills, the wonderful skills. Like, and also I was going to tell you, the other skills that helped me were self-care. I didn't ever know about self-care. I just thought, well, I'm going to work on, like I'll get everybody else taken care of, and then someday I'll look at myself, maybe go on.
Sounds so familiar.
But I started, that's how I got happy, was I started going to lunches with my friends. I started going and getting pedicures, listening to podcasts, and sitting in the hot tubs, and just listening to music. And it all got me very happy. And that's what brought back my husband, because of my glow and my happiness. And that's who he married. And I had lost that, and he wanted it back. And another thing that helped me was to think, when he walks out that door, how did I make him feel? Like, if I was pounding on him and complaining about what he had done and all that, then he walked out miserable. But if I was giving him gratitude and respect, and he walked out and he remembered how he felt, and it made him want to come back again and again. So
amazing. Cindy, thank you so much for sharing. So inspiring. I just loved listening. How to transform. It sounds like it has been a humbling experience for you. And thank you so much for sharing that, for all the women who are going through the same thing. at that moment, I'm sure that will be just thrilled and inspired to hear your story. There is hope, even in the most hopeless situations. So thank you so much for being with us today.
If there was hope, if anybody shouldn't have had hope, it was me. So if they should have hope, because it is possible. It really is.
Definitely. Oh, amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Neela.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm just going to stop the recording.